Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're talking to Normann Pokorny. He has a long history in the entertainment industry, and he recently got his first recommend ever on screenwriting. So we're just going to jump in. Let me introduce Norm. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background. You have a very, very extensive background in the industry. So just kind of start at the beginning and tell us how you built up to screenwriting.
Years ago, way back, I got in the film business. I worked my way up as a production assistant director, came up as a first AD on commercials, grew up and lived in Chicago for years and years, and made my living in commercials. TV shows would come to Chicago, shows like ER and Chicago Hope way back in the day. And I would work with those guys. So I had a really nice group of jobs with people from all different backgrounds and all different experiences. I got commercial work, which was fun, movie work on the TV shows. And, I've been doing this a long time. I've really enjoyed it, met some really nice people. And I've always liked writing. And I would write on my own in hopes of one day writing something that I could direct.
Okay, so you've been a first AD, and you mentioned you did ER, you've done Chicago, you've done Save the Last Dance with Julia Stiles, you've done Straight Talk with Dolly Parton and James Woods, and then you moved from there from being first AD, by the way, for those of you out there who don't know what that is, that's the first assistant director of a film. And then you also did The Exorcist, the television series.
I did part of that. I didn't do the whole series. I came in on the back half of that, and I did a handful of episodes there, which was great. Met a lot of nice people. It was a great show.
Okay, and then you also did Shameless Chicago Fire and Transformers 3. And then
Yeah.
after that, you got into producing. So tell us how this led into producing for you.
Yeah, I came up in commercials. I like commercials. As an AD, you are a problem solver, and being a producer is just the next extension. I like solving problems. You have to take care of the money, but on a low budget project under $1 million, problems are different, but you have to be creative. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so that was producing. So for those of you out there who don't know, a line producer is like the accountant on a film. They deal with the budgets and that. Now, did you do that in addition to regular producing or just the line producing?
I did basically line producing, on the lower budget shows that I worked on, everybody kind of knew what they wanted to do. They didn't really need a creative producer, somebody who could help fix the script. They just needed somebody to watch the production. If there were problems with the locations, we might have had to get in the middle of that. So it was mostly logistical problems, but we did have to track the budget. I did have to track the budget and keep track of that. And it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, you're basically making sure no one orders caviar for lunch, right? I mean,
No caviar allowed. Yeah.
a lot of writers out there don't think the producers do much, but they're like the heart and soul of how it sticks together. I mean, everything on a movie set, from you've run out of toilet paper to, oh, by the way, the actor did show up or they're going to be late, is on the producer's back. So it is
Yeah.
a tremendous responsibility.
Producer sometimes has to decide, well, is it worth the time to spend on this shot, which is going to wind up in the movie, or is it more important to go to another set, which may never make it in the movie? So it's every day, it's big questions, big decisions. What's the best thing for the project?
Well, let me ask you, because I know a lot of screenwriters, they're always so afraid of their stuff getting cut. So when you're on the set, have you seen that happen where like maybe a scene was cut or something because of budgets and that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think a screenwriter needs to write, he needs to follow his muse, he needs to get it down on paper. And then between the AD and the producer and the other and the director, they have to prioritize what's important. So for Alex October, we had a situation where we had 3 days of work and only 2 days of time left to shoot it. So you have to prioritize. Sometimes it goes, but sometimes it makes it better. This whole process along the way changes because you may think you missed out on something, but maybe the editor finds something down the road that makes it even better, which is what happened to us on Alex October. It's really a cool process. Don't be afraid to lose some things because you never know what's coming down the line. And everybody has the idea that it's going to be a great film. And as long as everybody's pulling that same direction, you got a good team.
And I agree with you. A lot of times it ends up being tighter and the pacing is better a lot of times when those everything happens for a reason. It's one of those
Everything
things.
happens for a reason. Agreed.
Right. Okay, so Norman, so tell me, now from there, you've gone into the writing. I know you said you've been writing for many, many years. So why did you get more into the screenplay? And we're going to talk about his first recommended script
Hmm.
ever here at Extreme Screenwriting in a minute. So first of all, tell us about your writing background.
I have had ideas like back in college, I did like half-hour TV dramas back in the day. Man, it goes back so far back. Half-hour TV dramas were a big thing, and I did a handful of those in college. And then from there, I had a buddy of mine. We wrote a really cool vampire story together, and it turned out really well. And I just enjoyed that process. There were like ideas that I had that if I found time, and if you're freelance, sometimes you're not working. And so you want to put that that free time to good use. So I would just keep writing, and I would rewrite vampire stuff. I mean, I'm a horror, sci-fi kind of guy. I like all that stuff. I don't like really all the gory stuff, but I like when they deal with concepts, bigger concepts and social constructs and stuff within a horror genre. A couple of years back, I had this great idea about this game that we used to play as kids, and I expanded that into what is now Statue Maker.
Yes, and Statue Maker is Norman's horror screenplay that received a recommend here from Extreme Screenwriting after he went through some revisions. I mean, it wasn't a one shot out. He went through some revisions. I sent him notes in that. And then he got the recommend on it. And it is clever. Like he said, it goes beyond the realms of just your normal horror to have that more intelligent feel to it, where you kind of have to sit back and try to anticipate what's happening, which builds suspense. So, Norman, congratulations on your first ever recommend.
Hey!
Yay! And please tell us about Statue Maker.
When we were kids, we would play this game called Statue Maker. And as part of Statue Maker, you'd get all your neighborhood kids together, and they would, pretend to be statues, and they'd get turned on with an imaginary button, and the kids would just do really goofy things like dance or spin on their head or something. But usually it was the most creative statue that won the game when we were playing outside. And I always thought, man, that would really be a cool basis for a horror film. So I created this, and I developed a story about this woman, this photographer named Sam. It's a female protagonist. I like that a lot. And she's
Mhm.
obsessed with paranormal phenomenon. And then her strange sister, who's a paramedic, comes to find her. She tracks her down one day, and she says, listen, I really need your help. Turns out that the paramedic's sister, or the paramedic's partner, is missing, and she wants Sam to come back to town and find her partner. The partner went into this abandoned factory, and he never came out again. So the spooky thing about the factory is that it's inhabited by this spirit child named Oriana. And for some reason, Oriana, if you encounter her, if you are in the factory and you encounter Oriana and she were to touch you, you would suddenly be solidified and turned into a stone or a statue or something
Statue,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Creepy, yeah.
so it's really creepy. And most of the time, it kept everybody out. So the ladies come back home to their hometown, and they're ready to go into the factory. However, there's this creepy old sheriff and all his cronies that wants to keep everybody out of the factory. And you don't really know why. Is the sheriff keeping everybody out to protect them, for their better good, or is he hiding something? We really don't know as the story goes. So the core of the story just is Sam and Kim looking for Kim's partner, but it's also about Sam coming to terms with her past and this spirit child Oriana and how that's affected her in her life. It's not, like I was saying before, it's not all jump scares, it's not all creepy hallways. It's exploring themes, and it's really interesting that I didn't intend to talk about these themes, but as I write it, these themes emerge, these themes of family relationships and the value of compassion and the importance of facing one's fears. Man, I just loved the process. You just don't know what you get until all of a sudden you're reading it and you're going, holy cow, that's really cool.
Right, and you also managed to add a lot of underlying dark humor, which I loved. And I
Yeah.
love the idea it's not based on the blood and gore, cutting off a head or something. It's more about the statue, and that's even creepier, right? Like you're gonna turn to stone. It's like you almost like you're turning to your own headstone or something. It was
As I get older, and I think what happened for me is as I get older, I worry about freezing, like not doing anything, like, becoming stuck, and it's the
right
metaphor for, becoming a
for life,
statue
yeah.
of
Yeah,
life.
for
Yeah.
life,
So
right.
again, it's interesting how that whole thing just kind of emerges.
And one, the contrast to that, what you just said about being stuck and being in this place, and I don't even know if you realize you did this, but it's one of the things that stood out to me in the script was you had this small town that hadn't really changed in like 20
Right.
years. It
Right.
itself was frozen in time. And like the
Right.
people there refused to change. They'd have the same signage, the same, like they just like it was just that's creepy. And I've actually been in small towns like that. Like, yeah, I live in Los Angeles. Now everything changes every day, right? And but you go to but you I've been to the small towns, like you go back after all these years and it's exactly the same. The next time I drive through a small town, I'm gonna think of Norman's script like, oh, this is where they make the statue people. So
Vote for Coolidge, just put it up
right.
there. Well, there's comfort in that in a way, right? I mean, there's comfort in not having to change, but there's
Right.
also
Right.
danger in that as well, which is again another thing that just kind of emerges from the story. Yeah, I'm
So
really happy with it. I thought it turned out really well. I thought your comments were fantastic, and I'm not going to gush too much, but I will say that I love your format for comments. And I
thank you.
tell everybody I get a chance to. When people give you coverage of a script, it's usually like a paragraph and it takes a minute to read it. They have to set up their ideas and explain what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
Your format is so quick and so juiced with really good ideas that you could apply later. I've never seen anything like it.
Do you have a process for writing? What did you do for as a screenwriter? Do you outline your projects? Do you just throw it up on the wall? What's your process?
All right, so here's my process. I get an idea, and the ideas are always, they come from anywhere. I'm probably a little ADHD, so, I got stuff shooting in and out. I like to explain it as like I open the windows, right? And I let all kinds of ideas come in. I could be driving, I'm taking a shower, I'm walking. I just let all these ideas in and I try to pick the best idea that I got. And then once I've got my idea, I try to flush it out a little bit. I know that I need an outline. I know that certain things have to happen, in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. I'm not trying to fit it into a template necessarily, but I know that I see the ending of the story. This character has to die, or he has to meet this other person. And so I kind of look at it like an archaeologist, where, oh, there's a stick in the ground, and I start pushing back the dirt on the stick, and oh, that's not a stick, that's a bone, and so you start brushing back all this little stuff, and then you start seeing what's attached to it. Once I can get enough material back and kind of spread out and see what I've got, I can build a schedule. And sometimes it's the skeleton of, a cow, and really I'm getting the skeleton of a dog, So I have to start moving around. But if I can get it on the page, get the first draft done, then I can start referencing, stuff that happened earlier in the story, introduce new characters that make it work better. But you got to get it up on its feet. And that's really my process. I just am always futzing with it. Is that a good word? Futzing.
Yeah.
I'm futzing with
I like that
it.
word.
And
You're working on a limited series. You want to tell us about some other projects you're working on or
after I finished this, and I gotta say that you said something to me. Hold on, I gotta find the word. You said something like horror requires that the threat remains.
that's
You
right.
said that about my ending, and
That's
I
right.
thought, yes, you are correct,
Right.
100%. And so I'm trying to figure out what it is, and it just like flashed into my head. And I thought, all right, this is cool. So I got a really good ending. And I think that that opened me up to finding a sequel because I think this
Oh,
is a franchisable kind of thing. I know exactly where I'm going to go now. Stuff that I couldn't include in the original draft, stuff I had to take out. Now I think I got a sequel.
and producers always, that's one of the reasons they like horror, not just because it's often lower budget, but because you can turn it into a franchise. Norman, make sure you mention to producers that you're working on the sequel because they're looking for franchises. Is there any advice you would give to screenwriters starting out here in the business?
Tons of stuff on YouTube, Film Courage, your stuff. And I'm not really a great reader. Like I've tried to start Story by Robert McKee like 6 times, and I just can't get through it. I think it's me. It's not that material.
Mm.
But YouTube, I can get it. There's tons of stuff, cool stuff, podcasts. Work on the thing that excites you the most and get it on paper, give it to people that you like. And sometimes that I think that positive affirmation, like if you give it to mom, they'll say, oh, yeah, Norm, that's really nice. That's good. That's important. You need that for your affirmations of, you're on the right track. But also, don't be afraid to spend a little money and get either, Barb's coverage or somebody else's coverage. Because the thing is, you need a variety of input, not too much, but just a nice variety. And then ultimately, you're the decider. You're the one that has to pick what works and what doesn't. Nobody knows everything. So you just have to you're the writer, you're the final word. Don't be afraid to change something big. For me, really quickly, in my script, the factory was originally a dollhouse or a doll factory because I thought dolls are scary, dolls, creepy dolls in a factory that's been abandoned, baby dolls that will never see love. And I thought that was really cool. But changing it to a gravel factory kind of focused it more. So don't be afraid to make changes if it's going to strengthen the story. Here, here.
Okay, so Norman, I thank you for being with us today. And is there anything last thing you'd like to say to the producers out there? Although you did an excellent job of pitching your screenplay, but
Thank you, ma'am.
this is your moment now if you'd like to say something.
I look forward to talking to people and kind of exploring this thing. I'm not a gore guy. I just want a really good story. I'm a long-term guy. I want to create something that has some heft. And, I like cooperating with other people. I'm not an autocrat. I just want to do it the best I can. And I just want to say thanks to my honey, Pauline, who took care of me and let me write when I wasn't working, and my buddy Wally Fester, who was really prolific when I was in high school, and I think he got me going. And my buddy Abigail Helm, who really helped me focus Statue Maker. I really appreciate all of them. Barb, thank you for helping me a lot. And Larry Postel, because
Oh,
Larry Postel
Larry, yeah.
gave me your name.
Okay, and Norman, just on a personal note, congratulations to Norman and his wife on their 40th anniversary.
Hey!
Whoa, that's a milestone. So, okay, thank you very much, Norman, for being here.